it's time for the Aquarium Show here on Wacko Bob, the Wacko Radio Network on Blog Talk Radio. And tomorrow I'll get our station advertising out of the way at the start of the program today. Tomorrow on the Pet Keeping Magazine and Radio Show, Rachel Robinson from the band Seraphim will be talking about pinups for pit bulls, and we'll be talking about pit bulls, and we'll have a special guest on that program tomorrow as well. John, are you looking forward to that?
Of course I am. That'll be a really good show. I want to learn more about pinups for pit bulls myself. I know about it, but I want to learn more.
Exactly. And also tomorrow we will have the Entertainment Review radio show following the Pet Keeping Magazine and Radio Show here on the Wacko Radio Network. And tomorrow we are going to be joined by two people, John. Clyde Hill, the manager of the band that is Bridges to Royal, and Emmerich Singh, and I hope I pronounced his name right, the guitar player, and I know that he does some singing, I do believe, for that band. And we're going to be celebrating the new music out of Canada, as well as talking about other things Canadian as far as the entertainment world goes with those two fine gentlemen. And John, I'm a very good old friend of Mr. Clyde Hill, so it's going to be a wonderful show tomorrow. Are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one because I'm going to learn some new things about some new people.
Yeah, my life up here in Canada. And for today, I would like to send a big shout out to an artist that supplied a lot of artwork for my friend and the show, Mr. Sam Garcia Jr. of Scalz Nature Art, and for this show, because we're discussing the art of setting up your marine aquarium and looking after your marine aquarium today with one of our other co-panel guests, Mr. Jim Carmark. Are you looking forward to today's episode, Jim?
I sure am.
Excellent. And without further ado, I would like to introduce a very close friend of mine. And we shared the airwaves a few times, haven't we, Tyler Johnson? My friend, my friend Tyler Johnson from Addictive Reef Keeping. And Tyler, go ahead and tell the folks a little bit about Tyler Johnson and what you're up to.
Oh, awesome. Once again, thank you, Willy, for having me on the show. And just you guys know, some of you guys call him William, but I call him Willy. I've known him for a little while, and he's a really good friend of mine. I've done a lot of shows with him, and I've met a lot of people. When I met Willy, I was doing YouTube, and I started a group on Facebook called Addictive Reef Keeping, and right now we're celebrating 10,000 members. We just got that in just a little over a year, and we're super excited for that. There's a great family on there, and a lot of people come on there, and we just get to chat and learn about everybody's techniques. Now, I did radio with Willy back in the day, and I moved on to radio, and that's where I did my shows with Michael Steffen and Sam Garcia, as Michael, as William mentioned, and me and Sam have another business relationship as well, and we're designing a shirt with a lot of his artwork. So if you are a fan of Sam's work, you will be able to wear his work, which is actually pretty exciting, at least for me, in my YouTube career, I just met so many people throughout that, so many opportunities came about that I started a website. It's actually 4 weeks old, called addictiveaquaculture.com, and it is a drop shipping site and also a site where we bring certified growers and breeders of fish and corals to a website to sell on. And this kind of helps the customer find a trustworthy retailer or trustworthy vendor or trustworthy grower or breeder where they can purchase their animal from and not feel like they're getting ripped off or know that they have a good reputation. So I've been building that site. Me and Chris from Image Projections, he is my partner. I went ahead and posted a bunch of links already here on Blog Talk Radio. If you guys check the comments down below, if you are part of Facebook, you'll see all my links. I believe I posted about 4 different links, and I just want to take some time, if you guys don't mind, and just mention some of the sponsors that have joined just in the last 4 weeks on the site. And these are also people who've joined as growers and certified breeders that are going to sell to the community. So first off, Scott Rhodes from SR Aquaristic. This is actually a cool guy that we brought on board. He started his own line. He's been in the hobby for about 25 years, and he started his own product line and basically carries everything you need from ponds to saltwater to freshwater, and he has developed it every step of the way. So I just did a recent video on his red slime remover, which is actually really cool. I found a local person who had a cyno problem in their reef tank, and we documented the footage hour by hour and put it up on YouTube. I was blown away on how well his product turned out. So I'll go ahead and blast through these guys real quick. We got Aqua Stalkers, Fish Street, Glass and Aquarium Whites, New Algae Aquarium, Ocean Revive, West Mariculture, A to Z Corals, Aldo from Coral Media, Aquatic Expo, Michael Thatcher, CMG Exotic Breeders, and Sam Garcia. And those are just the 2 guys. My list is like 4 times that size of people that were signing up behind the scenes, but I'm not going to mention any of their names right now. But if you go and check out the website, get registered. I have a bunch of contests coming up. We're giving away T-shirts, free tickets. What was the other one? Some paintings from a guy who does neon paintings that you put next to your reef tank that pop with the neon colors. So check us out. And that's pretty much where I'm at, guys. And Willy just called me about 2 weeks ago when I was just switching my YouTube or my Pet World radio show over to YouTube. We're actually broadcasting live right now from my YouTube channel as well. And that's what I'm doing, guys. And obviously, I love the hobby and I love my tanks, and I'm a complete addict.
Isn't that wonderful? We're on YouTube, courtesy of Tyler Johnson. And I'm going to begin with the show, Tyler, by saying we always say, John, Brandyberry, and Jim Carmark, and I myself always say that you have to do research. Get anything. I want to basically ask you about what kind of things in regards to books. What kind of books would you like to see the beginning hobbyist listen to, Tyler?
Can you repeat that? Sorry, Willy. I guess I had an issue with my video on YouTube. It's not broadcasting live, but it is now. It didn't have audio. Someone was just alerting me of that, so I had to fix that problem. Do you mind repeating that, Willy?
Yes, I would like to know what type of books that you would recommend to the beginning reef hobbyist. Research is one of those keys. So what books stand out in your mind? And then I'm going to pass the questions over to Jim Carmark, and my co-host have to answer that simple question.
Yeah, and actually, I saw a post from you, Willy, about the show, and you had a picture of saltwater aquariums for doties. And that was actually the first book I read, guys. I pulled up the Petco, and I wasn't really making a lot of money, so I actually bought the book, and I spent about 5 hours reading it in my car, and then I returned the book. And anyway, long story short, I don't do that anymore, but I used that book, and there were some
Jim Carmark. Jim, do you have a question for our guest, Tyler Johnson?
Tyler, if you were, I run a shop that we specialize in rare and exotic fish, but we also have, ocellaris, clowns, and things like that. When I set up a basic saltwater tank for somebody who just wants, 2 Nemos, I usually do it with live rock, an outside filter, natural salt water, but I generally don't sell a protein skimmer to these people. How important is a protein skimmer, in your opinion, in these smaller reef systems? Say $20 and under.
Okay. You shouldn't even have one. I mean, honestly, you can have one, and like I say, I'm going to say this 100 times, guys. There's a million ways, and if it works for you with the protein skimmer, then by all means do it. But as far as doing your water changes, if you're going to have an animal, you're going to assume the responsibility of taking care of that animal, and that's called routine maintenance. So if we're going to change out the water on a weekly basis, and that's going to be either 5 or 10%, or we're going to do 20% bi-weekly, then we do not need a protein skimmer. There's no need for it. The tank is so small. When we do that percentage of a water change, it changes the parameters drastically, versus a 150-gallon tank. Now, as far as these systems and stuff, are they working without the skimmer, or are you putting the skimmer on there?
Well, I recommend water changes. I don't see that in these small systems it does much benefit to load it up with a ton of equipment, because you get such a small volume of water. The animals can have a significant effect on, just the critters growing there, the corals and everything else. Your iodine goes down, your calcium goes down, and if you try, I'm a chemist, and I don't like clean chemist on little tiny tanks. To me, it is much simpler and more reliable to tell somebody to do a 25% water change every couple of weeks. Get rid of the bad water, bring in some new water, and those are my recommendations. And it seems to work, but I would love to know if there's a alternative small skimmer that I can put on these. Some of these tanks are only 9 gallons, 7 gallons. Some of these little nano tanks. And I'm not impressed with the small skimmers that I've seen that a couple of the companies sell. They were just, little Andrew are the ones that are close to useless.
Well, what I would recommend on something small. Now, obviously, if someone's having a small tank, they don't really want to have all these gaudy equipment that are sitting on the cabinet floor or up above it, or like mine, or whatever. Now, algae scrubbers, I swear by them. They work so well, and there is some models out there, and there is a lot of do-it-yourself models, but there is some models that you can buy for a customer that they basically just magnet on the side of your sump or the side of your display. It doesn't matter because they're completely blacked out, and they have little red, blue LEDs. Now, microalgae, when it comes to exporting nutrients, is insane compared to macroalgae. It doesn't even touch it. And honestly, guys, when you set up a display tank and you want to set up a proper filtration system, and you see those subs that have the refugium in the center, and maybe the sump is 30%, maybe 20% of the size of the display tank, and the person thinks that refugium is going to take care of that system, nitrates and phosphates. No, it doesn't. You need a system that's times that size if you're going to deal with macro. Now, when you're dealing with micro, literally you just need inches by inches. Not even joking. A good website or a good form to check out is algaescrubbers.net. Check that out, guys. Any type of information that you need, formulas or whatever that you need to take care of your tank. But if you think about it, when you see a tank that's covered in green hair algae and you go to test for the nutrient levels in the system, all the time is going to be zero because they are consuming it just as fast as it's being produced. So why not use a natural and very efficient filtration for such a small tank? They're super simple.
Cool. Hey, good idea.
John, would you happen to have a question? I know that you keep a saltwater aquarium, so is there anything that comes to your mind in regards to what you would want to ask Tyler at this time?
Sure. Actually, I have 3. I have 255s and a 45. But anyway, my question is, in lieu of the protein skimmer, are there particular filtration systems that would do what is necessary, that are good to have along with your water changes? Are there any particular brands or particular type?
Like basically supplements that you'd want to put in with your water when you're changing?
No, I mean as far as the filtration system itself, because I know they don't make a filtration system to get rid of your protein, but I don't even use protein skimmers on mine. I go with the basic saltwater aquarium filter and make sure I do my water changes and keep track of everything. But I just wonder if there's any particular type of filter that you would say would be the best for someone that might even have been in saltwater for quite a while.
Well, like I said, algae scrubbers, I mean, I swear by those, and I really do want to see a lot of people do that. And even the people that started in the hobby, and if it depends on how long you've been in the hobby, but you've seen those old wet dry trickle filters that we used to put on our systems, and we thought they worked great, when in all reality, all they did was catch detritus and become a nitrate factory. But algae scrubbers, I swear by them, and I swear by a bunch of things. On my own system, I run an algae scrubber and I run a protein skimmer, and I'm about ready to put a biopellet reactor on there. And the reason why I'm doing that is so I can use the bacteria. A lot of people use biopellet reactors just for their tank and only for their tank. Now, what I mean by that is like their own type of filtration, and that's it. And yes, it works. It's very possible. But as far as working and using it as a different aspect, you can actually use the bacteria that the polymer puts off from eating up the bacteria, and it produces food for your stony corals, which is super cool when if you're trying to figure out ways to just kind of boost growth and try to figure out a cool way to do that. And also another form is new algae. I don't know if you remember me mentioning that they did join our website, and they do sell their product on our site. Their site or their product has saved so many tanks. And when you look at new algae, you might think, oh, this product is just one of those things that's going to band-aid the problem, and then the problem's going to continue to come back. Well, the way new algae was designed is it actually promotes a smaller form of diatom bloom. It makes a smaller type of algae, so the rockefers can consume it faster and better. So it's not necessarily doing anything drastic in your tank. You think it is, but all it does is change the type of algae that grows in your tank, because it grows smaller and slower. So it tends to fix a lot of problems in people's tanks. So that's a good supplement that I put in when I do water changes. Prime is another good example of a water conditioner or something that's going to take away nitrates, chloramine, things like that, or into water. But as far as other methods, I mean, there's so many ways. Some people do deep sand beds, and that works for some people for a really long time, and some people it doesn't work. But I kind of like mixing it up. That's why I have the algae scrubber, I have the protein skimmer, I'm going to add the biopellet reactor, and I have Cheetomorpho that I use in there. And that's not because I'm trying to export nutrients. That's because I'm trying to create a luscious area for my amphipod developers to multiply. And whether I have shrimps in there or not, I don't know, but someday I might, and that'll be a great place for the breed as well. So, there's so many ways you could do your system, and I just kind of like jumble it all together, and it works for me. So why not fix it? Why try to fix it?
Now, Tyler, I have a question that I would normally ask at this time, because I'm thinking that it's the art of maintaining and setting up your Marine Aquarium. But, you know, here on the Reefs and Rivers Aquarium Show, Jim and I have always sort of like processed the fact of understanding the animal that you're getting and the size of aquarium. How important is this to you in the marine hobby as well? And do setups vary? Because I see people that are into coral, and I also see people that are just into fish. So what's your thoughts on my statement, Tyler?
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing is people need to do their research. It's so sad to see how many fish actually get lost in the trade. And working behind the scenes now, actually working in the industry, we actually see how many fish are injured or forgotten about or misinformed and put into their tank. So I think making sure that you do the research before you set up this aquarium is the most vital and most important thing. I mean, you wouldn't go and, I look at it as I would look at any other animal. I mean, you wouldn't go and buy a humongous dog when you live in a one-bedroom house and maybe have 3 people that live there. That's just an example. So I think it's very important to find ways to get your research. And that's the other thing too. I think a lot of people are misinformed. They don't know where to go, or they just get one answer, and you can't get away from it. Whether you go onto a forum or if you go onto the radio show or if you go onto Facebook, it's everybody's opinion, and you really have to just take that and run with it and do your best to apply that to your animal's health.
Excellent. Jim?
Not to go, I want to go back to the algae for 1 second. I used algae filters back in the late 80s and early 90s. I found that they were very leaky as far as color compounds go, that it would tend to turn the water very yellow within a short period of time. Are there certain species of algae that do this and others don't, or do you find this is use carbon to pull the color compounds out?
I missed that last part. It kind of scratchy right there. Can you repeat that?
Well, do you use activated carbon or?
Activated carbon.
Right. Well, the protein skimmer will pull a lot of this junk out. But if you don't have a protein skimmer, I like algae filters. I at the Marine Aquarium, a bunch of them, but we discontinued using them because the tanks were going so yellow on us. And even though the water quality was great, the water kept going yellow. And they did not want to use activated carbon, so we went to just bigger protein skimmers, really big protein skimmers. Do you find that this is an issue with algae scrubbers, or are there certain species of algae that are better than others?
Well, and that's the cool thing about algae scrubbers is basically there's a life cycle there that happens. You don't just start out with the algae that you're going to end up with 3 weeks down the road. There's a process, and basically what you do is you light it up 24/7 with a compact fluorescent light or a red and blue LED, or there's a bunch of different options. I'm not going to tell you exactly which one to do. I run the red and blue LED, and it seems to work really good. But when the algae starts growing, it is a brown algae, and as that brown algae continues to grow, it gets a little bit bigger, and what you want to do is you want to pull it off and scrape that off like 7 days later. And then you're going to start seeing, when you scrape that off with a plastic credit card, you'll look and you'll see these little tiny green tufts, see-through pieces of string algae is what it looks like. And that's turf algae starting to grow. And what you'll notice is after the next 2 weeks, instead of the algae screen being covered in brown algae, it'll be covered in super bright green algae. I've actually done a lot of videos on my YouTube channel of me cleaning my algae scrubber out. And it's just like having a skimmer if you think about it. You take your collection cup out once a week, which is disgusting and sucks for a lot of people. I have mine that runs down to a tube. It goes into a container that has air vents that go through carbon, so I don't smell it. But it is gross. But the same thing happens when you do an algae scrubber. You do have to export that nutrients, and that's take the mesh out, take it into the bathroom or whatever outside and scrape it out. You'll get a good hand size of this algae aquarium tanks are crystal clear. I mean, I'm not even joking. This is a good example. If you guys want to know if your tank is water, or sorry, if your tank is yellow water, you just get a flashcard or some sort and find a few different colors of yellow, preferably, like pea yellow, and put those lines on the flashcard and then cover it with tape so it doesn't get wet. What you do is you put it in the water, you put it up against the glass, and it will disappear. One of the yellow lines will disappear, and that's how you can tell how dirty your water is. Or you can get a white bucket, pour a little bit of water in there, and then you can definitely see how yellow it is. Or you can look through the side of your tank. Those are a few ways of doing that. But with that said, guys, I haven't noticed any issues with water clarity with algae scrubbers, honestly. And I think the reason why is because it catches so much of the debris, depending on the way you have it set up, and they kind of act like a little water polisher,
Oh, absolutely. I agree. The water quality and the water clarity was excellent. It just had a yellowish orange tint to it, and we weren't sure if it was the algae that's colonizing it. Huh? Excuse me?
This system only had an algae scrubber?
Yeah, 4x8. 4x8 algae scrubber on it.
Wow.
This was, I'm talking, this was 1989, I think it was, put the big one in. And it worked dynamite. We had nitrates, went from 30, 35 ppm right down to like 1. It was great. And, it does, everything was better, but the water kept going yellow. And when eventually had to go to PM EST. Go ahead.
I like carbon. I like carbon, but I'm not a big fan of using it. Everything in moderation with carbon is my motto. And Kitty Care is a good product, or Persian is a good product. If you're having that yellow-ish problem in the water and you're really not wanting to sit there and add chemicals and things like that, add those two products, man. I know a lot of service people that when they go and service a tank and it tends to get super cloudy, they'll throw a couple bags of Kitty Care in there and the tank will be crystal clear in a couple hours. So those are kind of cool, quick fixes. And same thing with carbon. If I was to have an issue with clarity in my water, I would probably just, do it once every couple months, and I'm sure it wouldn't be that big of an issue all the time.
See, I'm really hesitant to use activated carbon. I won't use it in my freshwater systems anymore because I really believe it promotes hole in the head disease. So we just do, in our shop, we just do water changes. We do 90% water changes in most of our systems. The saltwater tanks get a 50% water change every 2 weeks. And we've got protein skimmers, live rock, lots of circulation, moderate amount of light. We're not killing our tanks for light because we do mostly soft coils and things like that. And a couple of our big systems have refugiums, and we're using a reverse daylight with ketomorpha in it. But I really wouldn't, so that when the tank light is off, the refugium light is on, and there's ketomorpha growing in it. Now that seems to work pretty well, but we seem to have a continual problem with phosphorus. Phosphorus keeps, we see half a ppm or a third of a ppm, no matter what we do. The water changes, we still get a third of ppm. Is there a way to get rid of that, to control phosphorus? Because I know it's growing some of this algae that I don't want.
I haven't really had an issue with that now. This system, how many gallons is it?
Excuse me?
I said, how many gallons is this system that you're talking about?
Altogether, 175.
175.
Yeah.
And how old have you been running it for?
About a year. That one's been running.
About a year.
It's got a good sized sump. I don't like the protein skimmer that's in there. The one that was there, we put on another installation, and we're always stealing from Peter to pay Paul.
Oh yeah. I noticed a good. What?
Excuse me. Go ahead.
Oh, I said, when it comes to sumps and major things I do is I look for detritus. Detritus tends to settle in those spots in your tank. And believe it or not, I noticed a lot of people that have issues in their tank, I'll ask them about this situation and ask them how bad it is. And they'll say, oh, yeah, I've done that year, or I've done that 4 months or whatever. And, I do it every other water change. I go through with my sump and I suck all that out. And you'll notice a huge difference in clarity and the algae growth that's on the front of your glass. It's all different. Yeah, it's huge difference. I think it brings it back to the day you set it up. If you're pushing to that year mark, it could be a detritus issue. What are you doing for flow? I mean, flow is one of the big filtration methods that I always advocate to hobbyists too, is getting that stuff, those dead spots, the detritus, out of the rocks and the crevices that are behind.
Well, one of the problems that I'm having is I know how I want to set up a tank, with a surge bucket and the whole works. But when I go to tell a customer how we really should do it, they just want something they can, something simple. And if you get it too simple, it doesn't work. But customers don't. They just want something they can plug in, pour some water into it, and feed the fish once in a while. And of course, salt water requires a lot more commitment than that. But that's what we're up against. That's what a lot of us are up against in the hobby here. Is we don't have real hobbyists anymore, for the most part. I would say that back in the 60s, 50% of the people coming into the shop were real hobbyists. Now I'd say it's 20%. Truly know what they're doing and are willing to take time to research and pay attention. But how much? I use a couple of pounds, say a 50-gallon tank. We sell a lot of 50-gallon liters. We recommend 2 good-sized propeller pumps in there, minimum. An outside filter to remove detritus. Preferably, we would recommend it be drilled with a sump and a small sand filter in it, a lemon. And that's how we recommend live rock, lots of circulation, moderate amount of light. I don't believe in killer amounts of light anymore. It's too expensive, and unless you're doing SPS, I don't really think it's necessary. I think with the new LEDs, you can get away with a surprisingly inexpensive running cost for your setup. The metal halides were killing us. They were costing us 75 cents to $1 an hour to run.
Yeah, that was one thing. There was, I see the LEDs come out, and I was really hoping that the price would drop fast, because it was unbelievable how much they were charging at the beginning. But you mentioned surge tank, man. You got me excited. I don't know if you guys know me and surge tanks, but I've done quite a few on YouTube. I love them. You guys really need to check out my system. But I have a 40-gallon breeder tank. That's my display tank. And above that, it's all on an arm wall. Above that, I have a 12-gallon nano and a 20-gallon tank and another 20-gallon tank with a skimmer. And that other 20-gallon tank has a waterfall. And in that waterfall chamber is your surge device, the toilet flapper. So the water goes up and down and feeds water to my algae scrubber, and then also the water runs down the trough where the algae grows as well. And when that chamber fills up, it's about 3 gallons, it dumps it down into my 40-gallon display tank, and then as it fills up a little bit, it goes down and it goes to another separate system that I do all my fragging on. But surge tanks are awesome, man. I'm glad you mentioned that. And to your question about the 55-gallon tank and the Corella pumps, I see people still buying the Corellas. And no offense to Corellas, they're great pumps and everything, but they're about $77 for for one of those to put in your 55-gallon tank. And they're not actually, how can I say this without hurting their feelings? They can't handle what a lot of these other pumps can do on the system. You have these Apex controllers these pumps are barely over $100 for about a 300-gallon tank if you wanted to use one of a 300-gallon tank, and then they go as low as $50. Now these pumps, you could put two in the tank for the 55 and make standing waves in that tank if you wanted to. Now the reason I promote these products so much is because they're so cheap. They allow a lot of hobbies to get into the hobby, but unfortunately, like you said, it seems like a lot of these hobbies are getting to the hobby and not doing enough research. Well, having these pumps solves a lot of problems, because most of the problems I see on addictive reef keeping is people who have problems with flow in their tank. The coral's not having because it's not getting the proper flow. So if we're able to put the proper pumps in the tank from day one, that alleviates that problem, and it alleviates a ton of other problems down the road that hobbyists might have, and also puts more money in their pocket. So I would start moving your customers over to the J-Lo line, and I don't know, man, the fill rate's only 3%, and actually 2% the first year. Then they switched to the RW line, which these pumps are super crazy powerful, and their fill rate this year was 3%. So super low and great deal.
Cool. That's yeah. That one, to me, flow is one of the most important things in any reef system. You go diving on a coral reef, and the water's just flowing back and forth, and it's a constant state of flux, and you just don't see that in most small systems. We do something called I think it's called a home loop, using a 5-gallon bucket. You familiar with that? For the surge tank?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And we just pump it. We just, as the 5-gallon bucket fills up, it gets higher than the loop. The loop starts to siphon and sucks all the water out of the bucket into the.
So that's the Carlson design, I believe. It says siphons out. Do you have any issues with bubbles or noise or anything like that? Are you happy with it overall?
Well, it does suck at the bottom. If you use a fairly large pipe, the secret is not to use too small a pipe, in my opinion. Because if you use something like 1.5 or 2 inch, it'll empty that thing in a hurry. It'll give you a real good surge.
Yes, 1 inch, my friend.
1 inch is okay, but I found 1.5 was 1.25 was okay. It was better. 1.5 was, I thought, optimal. I use them on 90s, and I just pump it up there with power head and let it. Or if the tank is on a system, I just divert one of the return lines up to the surge tank, and send it out of the flow up there.
Yeah, and a really cool thing to do too is if you, at the top of your U, if you make a spot for you to put some 1/4-inch tubing in there, and you run that tubing all the way down to the end of the 90, and you run it just above where you have a break siphon, you'll be able to control that on and off a lot easier, and it'll be a lot quieter. Try it out, man. I've built so many of them, and I love every single one of them. I have a design to build one. I actually have a hot tub, a 300-gallon hot tub that's cylinder, and it used to have coral frags in it, but long story short, I'm going to build something super cool out of it. But I'm going to surround the top of this hot tub with like 20 buckets all the way around, and have them all run on one pump. So have them, have some at a slower rate, some at a faster rate, build, and just let it freaking go nuts, man, all day long. Oh, I can't wait.
That's cool.
It'll probably be a little too much. But if you guys have been at the aquariums, a lot of those rooftops, there's 400 or 500-gallon Carlson or Boarding and Design surge tanks. They use them everywhere.
Wow.
I'd like to get in our break if we can right now, and then we'll be right back. Bob, I need a station commercial type of break, and then we'll be right back. Bob, are you again?
show here. My buddy Larry's Vinyl Rock Source place to go if you're looking for hard to find albums or CDs. This month coming out, he has Bob Dylan, the complete album collection box set on CD, November 5th. The Beatles, On Air Live at the BBC, Volume 2, on CD and LP, November 11th. Black Sabbath, Gathered in Their Masses, DVD, on November 22nd. And also, gang, for all you Velvet Underground Lou Reed fans, Larry has a lot of their stuff in stock right now. And remember, Larry's a collector as well, so he doesn't charge collector's prices. Check out Larry's eBay store, Vinyl Rock Source mail order, his Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Vinyl Rock Source mail order. Like the page, tell them the Wacko Network sent you.
Hey, what's up? This is the most attractive man. Have you ever wanted to be rewarded for the content that you post on your social media networks, such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube? Well, now you can. There's been a new app developed for mobile devices. It's called PostShare. PostShare is the first mobile application that lets you post content exclusively to your social media sites, such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And the posting process has never been easier, unlike other mobile apps most like it. And it will actually reward you for the content that you're posting. All you have to do is go to Google Play and download the mobile app and register and start posting your content and start getting rewarded for the first time ever exclusively because of PostShare. For people like Noelle, who love me to death, she can now see photos and videos of the most attractive man while he's on his summer vacation, who can never get away from doing these advertisements even when he's on vacation. But now, thanks to PostShare, I can share my photos and videos on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube with her so she can revel in her glory. Download PostShare today and start being rewarded like you should be for posting your content. It's time the user was rewarded.
Scalz Watch and Clock, 106 West Central Avenue, Winter Haven, Florida, 33880. Located downtown across from the main post office. When you're short on time, he's right on time. For all of your watch, clock, sales, and service needs, call Scalz, 863-294-5630. Sales, service, free estimates, and reasonable rates. That's 863-294-5630 for Scalz Watch and Clock.
that was Locked, Cocked, and Ready to Rock by Jack Dalton, and we're back here on the Reefs and Rivers Aquarium Show, and we're going to continue on with the art of keeping your marine aquarium, and some tips here from Tyler Johnson. And Jim, I'll let John have a question to open up this block on the program. John, do you have anything that you would like to ask Tyler about as far as the question goes?
Sure. Once you get your aquarium set up and your filtration system running and all, what do you tell people to start with? How do you start their aquarium? There are all kinds of theories, live rock and all kinds of stuff. How would you set up a basic aquarium to start before they start getting into making it larger? Say 40 gallon. Oh, let's make a 40-gallon aquarium. Let's do it that way. What would you tell them to start?
Good question. You know, I think I even did a video on how I move my 40-gallon, but it's super simple. You know, there's two ways that you can actually start a system up, and one way is dry rock, and that's rock that has already been dried out. It's usually dug up, and these things are full of stuff. So don't think that unless you read, you know, the fine print that it's been cycled and cleaned, but still, I recommend cycling it. So your first order of business is find your rock, or you can buy live rock from your pet store, which does work, and it is a great way to kick off a tank. You know, you're also introducing possibilities of certain pests, but that's a gamble, you know, that some people are willing to take. It's a gamble that I take sometimes in my own system. But if you want to start it out and not have, you know, very small issues with it, I recommend starting out with dry rock, curate in salt water for basically anywhere from 4 weeks to 8 weeks, and it just depends on how bad the rock is. So if the rock was live, you would definitely want to cure it for longer than 8 weeks, and you would just be testing for pH, or not your pH, but your ammonia and your nitrates, and make sure that it goes through that cycle. And when it's completed that cycle, then you know that rock is safe to put in your system, and it's not going to jumpstart another startup in your tank or prolong your cycle. So once you do that, I always tell people just wait until you see coralline growing. And when you see coralline growing, it uses the same needs as a coral, but, you know, much of those needs. And when you start seeing that stuff populating and going crazy, start throwing in corals. You know, and just before that, obviously, after your cycle is going, you can throw in your inhabitants like shrimps and your cleanup crew, get that all established. And that's another big one for algae. We're talking about algae so much. A lot of times it's just improper cleanup crew. I'm not even joking you. Some of these people that come into your store, I'm sure, will be like, you know, I got these huge algae problems, and you ask them what their cleanup crew is, and they have maybe one snail, you know, and it's a 40-gallon tank. You're like, that's not going to work. So make sure you guys get your proper cleanup crew. And you also kind of want to add it in stages. And I always tell hobbyists to do this as well. I mean, I'm not going to go and buy, if I have a 120-gallon tank, buy, 240 snails, and then get my 240 hermit crabs and just throw them all in there. Because 9 times out of 10, there might be a little bit of an issue of starving with the snails versus the hermit crabs, because your tank's just not there yet, you know, right? So, those are some pretty simple ways of starting a tank up and getting them to go. Super simple. Another one is find a good mentor, or find somebody that's a good friend of yours that has a saltwater tank, and you can literally start a tank up overnight. I mean, every time I move my tank, that's pretty much how I do it. I can either, you know, ask a buddy for all his water change, depending on how dirty his water is, or I can completely siphon out all the water and move it to another location, and you can start up a tank instantly, technically. So another good product, guys, this is one, I look at this as an insurance policy that saved my bacon a bunch of times. Stability by Sea Count. I don't sell the product or anything like that, but I just know it's a good product, and it's it does what it's supposed to do. But basically, live sand or the old rock. You can't just throw that rock into a new system and start it up and think you're going to be fine, because most of the time you've already killed a lot of the organisms on there from the cloudy water, mixing with the inhabitants that are inside there, or you are leaving the rock dry. If you leave rock dry, a lot of the stuff dies anyway, so you have to deal with the die-off when you put it in your tank. So get stability, and it really helps consume that nasty stuff that's in your water, and then also eliminates any ammonia that might happen to your tank. And the last thing you want is to burn your fish when they just went through a move. So use those tips, guys, when you're setting up your new tank, and also make sure you do your research. That's another good one,
Jim? I got a question, Tyler. What would you say is the minimum, say a kid comes into my shop, and they often do, and they want a couple of Ocellaris clowns. What would you say would be the minimum tank size for this kid, equipment, and other tank inhabitants? If you want, I'll tell you how I do it.
How about you go first, and then I'll just put my input in.
We generally recommend a minimum of 20-gallon tank. We use acclimated live rock that comes out of we have 3 or 4 tanks that have real good live rock in it. So we take from that, along with some dead rock, dry rock, and we use that to build a base up. And excuse me, we use an outside power filter to pick up detritus, with the tube going all the way to the bottom of the tank, and a power head or a propeller pump in each corner, about 2 of them, and a bunch of hermit crabs, bunch of snails. We try to do at least a dozen of each. The little blue legs and some red legs, hermits, and a couple different kinds of snails. And we set all that up, and then no fish goes home with it. And we let it run for a week or so with just those inhabitants in them, and him feeding it very sparingly. He brings a sample of water in. We throw a pair of young clownfish in. And to date, we've been really successful. I mean, it's remarkable how well these little tanks do. But for me, it's not enough. I mean, I would like to see the tank drilled. I'd like to see a protein skimmer on it. I'd like to see a refugium, surge tank. But before long, it's getting really complicated. What would you add to my little startup kit, or what would you change in it?
Yeah, well, first off, man, you found a way that works good for you and works good for everybody. And I mean, there's not really much that you can change about yours. You did mention behind the scenes that you have ocean water, and that would be a major plus to adding to that system. But like I mentioned with that stability product, is technically you can send that fish home with the customer if you send them home with that product. And that product is guaranteed to keep those fish alive and safe and happy, and promote that cycle even faster because it contains bacteria. Now, the one cool thing with sea chem, I ordered it one time because my fish got marine velvet. I don't know if you know what marine velvet is, but it is freaking nasty, and it takes over your tank so fast, it got your head scratched. What just happened? But if you know what the signs are, if you know what to look for, you can actually spot it kind of quickly. But it took 24 fish before I actually knew what I had. But I needed that product because I needed to set up another system super fast, and I did not want it to cycle. I did not want to hurt the fish with ammonia and everything like that, and I was limited to a small size. I bought that product. G-Chem sent it to me, and unfortunately, when I got it, the bottle was frozen. So I just want to make sure, if it does freeze, guys, it will kill the bacteria that's in the bottle, and it's going to do a little bit like maybe remove the ammonia and keep the fish's slime coat happy, but it's not going to do its main purpose, and that's keep the fish safe or get your tank to cycle. So believe it or not, guys, they next day aired it to me, and my fish were safe. But I saw my ammonia starting to rise, and I was able to add the product in a day later, and that ammonia went instantly down within like 6 hours. and I was able to continue my cycle, and I never touched the product again, and the fish lived for another 6 months, and I sold them. And that product helped me. So that's probably another product I'd be adding. I add this product to a lot of things that I do with people, and it's just because this is usually what happens is people just don't know what to do, and this really helps them kind of get over that hump to getting a successful reef with successful bacteria, successful rock. I'm glad that you build base up with dry rock and you have a good source. Being close to the ocean, this got to be outstanding for the business. But it's awesome that the kids get to have live rock. I mean, you can't do anything better, man. I mean, I don't know, man. I couldn't think of anything better, man. If it works, why fix it?
Well, I really encourage young people to get into the hobby and learn it, and it's a lot of it is just so exciting. Just whether it's freshwater or saltwater, and the growth and reproduction, and just the watching the natural behavior of these animals is so fascinating that I don't necessarily want to scare people off by, telling them, oh, that's too difficult. Salt water is really hard. It's this, it's that. I mean, it's really not that hard. I mean, I had a yellow tank for 15 years. Saltwater fish can live for a long time in captivity. They're properly taken care of. But I hate to put a fish into the minimum necessary equipment. I always like to go a little bit better than minimum. So I always go with a little more circulation than I maybe need, a little bit bigger outside filter than I maybe need, and I always recommend water changes. Other guys recommend 10% a month. I recommend 25% twice a month because it's free. I mean, every one of my customers in our area mostly lives is 10 miles from the ocean. Now, granted, doing a water change in the middle of February is bracing. But we're going to start. We are going to start selling water. But you think this? Where's that product called? Stability?
Yes. Really. Now, I also want to mention this. I just want to mention real quick. You cannot mix this product with copper. Wait a minute. Prime. Never mind. You can mix this product with copper. You cannot mix prime with copper or prime with cupermine because it'll intensify it 10 times. I always get that confused, but this is the product that you're going to want to use if you are medicating a fish and you want to put them in a system and you want to make sure that the tank doesn't get ammonia or nitrates or anything like that. You can use this product with copper or cupermine.
Wow, cool. Well, I'm a big proponent of when we do a freshwater system from Belize. I went up to a friend of mine who runs an aquaculture company, and I bought live aquaculture bacteria and brought it back and seeded all my tanks because I feel that if you don't have the right mix of bacteria, and it's got to be, really good bacteria, it just can't be what happens to wander into your tank. We find that some saltwater tanks are a lot better than others, even though they were set up very similar. And I think some of it is the quality of the bacteria in the rock. Do you think this stability helps to overcome that problem?
I mean, I don't want to say that it doesn't. It doesn't. I just know it works for me, and it's worked for many other people. And I like to promote products that do that because it's hard to find good information out there and good techniques to take care of your tank. I mean, I've always been an advocate of the natural way, and the natural way doesn't always work. And you'll be surprised some of the products that you use to take care of your tanks. You can actually go to Walgreens and get them right out of there, and they're human grade. So right. I think it's just a matter of figuring out what's right.
Right. There's lots of ways to skin a cat. There's no way to make a cat like it. True. One other question. Well, let's go on to feeding. What do you feel is a basic adequate diet for a small tank of reef fish? And what would you add to my clownfish and gobies? I mean, clownfish and snails and things like that.
Yeah.
Would you add gobies? Would you add? I mean, what would you shrimp? What other inhabitants would you recommend?
For the 20 or 40 gallon tank.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'll touch on that. Or what was the first question again, real quick? Because I want to answer that. I had something I was going to say to that. There's something about a product you're talking about.
Well, we were talking about the stability product. I lost my train of thought.
I can't remember either, but you know, the gobies, those are pretty good. Those keep the parasites off the fish, and they're good for a small tank like that. The shrimps are good. I'm a big fan of the bicolor blades. Get yourself a wrasse. That's like the most important thing if you're going to be doing a little reef tank, is find a pest eater. And you know, when I look at a reef tank, I look at it as an ecosystem, but I also look at it as a garden. And if my garden, you know, these kind of sprinklers or these kind of new breeding, it's getting kind of windy.
Yeah, you there?
Yeah, I'm just having a hard time. Yeah, it's kind of windy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. But you know, those are some good inhabitants to get. I'm a big fan of the coral banded shrimp. I know a lot of people. They're like, oh, they eat fish or they try to attack my fish. I've actually never seen mine eat a fish or anything like that. I always do go after it, but I've never seen them actually like pursue it and take down a fish. But those are one of my favorite things to add to any tank. I mean, they just add so much life to the tank, and they really help a lot. What about corals and stuff? What are some of these beginners eating for corals? I know that you deal in South Seas, and I was kind of wondering what you're setting these guys up as far as lighting and as far as corals in the tank.
Well, I try to recommend 2 T5s are what I recommend as minimum they want to keep. Anything. If they just want to keep fish, they can use any kind of light they want. And a lot of them do. They don't want to do anything. But I recommend, there's some very interesting LED lights out there. And I'm really uncomfortable because I just don't understand the lighting of an LED as related to a, you know, I'm from the old school, fluorescent lights. You know, metal halides, I understand how much light you know, but LEDs you can seem to get away with a very small amount of wattage in comparison and get a sufficient amount of lights. And it's not just lumens, it's the spectrum seems to be better targeted for certain animals. So I'm uncomfortable recommending certain brands because everybody's got all these different claims, and one brand that was okay 6 months ago is now, oh my God, not that one. It's, you know, how do you pick a light? I mean, I know what a T5 will do. I don't know what some of these LEDs will do, and they're not cheap. You know, I don't want to tell somebody to spend $100 on unproven technology. That said, I'm using LEDs in most of my tanks because I believe in it. But I'm still learning which ones seem good, which ones aren't. I mean, I won't say one of the biggest brands in the country I'm really disappointed in. And if they just stay, you know, they're just not very good. Even their double light, you know, they're just, and you know, it's just, I'm like, wow, this is just, I won't say it's junk, but it's pretty close to junk. And there's other brands that are, you know, made by somebody in China and I don't recognize the brand, and I don't know what, any quality issue about them, but they seem to work dynamite, and they're short money. And, that's my quandary. What do I recommend, I'm uncomfortable recommending the products that are being offered to me now. So I fall back on old technology, T5s, few T5s, and that seems to give adequate light, adequate lifespan. If you want to try LEDs, go ahead. But I don't have enough track record with them to stand behind that brand yet.
Yeah, we are a blessed generation. We have reef tanks in our house. That just hasn't been done, and we are still learning. And LEDs scared me at first, and I've been using them now for almost 2 years, and I've been documenting the growth and comparing the growth between halides and safe species. And there's a bunch of other people that do it as well, but it really depends on what you're buying, and a customer should know what they're buying. That's why me and Chris built the site, is to put products up that we believe in and that we know the hobbyists believe in it. Ocean Revive LEDs are some of the lights that I use, and I've never had a single problem with them. And the reason why is because they did the research. They don't use crummy half-watt or 1-watt LEDs. They use 3-watt Bridgelux. They run them at 2 watts a piece. They don't run them at 3 watts because they know that the unit's going to overheat. It's not going to last as long, and overall it's going to bad for the coral. So I found a company that I believe in, and I've been with, he's a good friend of mine, and my mix with LEDs and the whole lighting thing is I've used the 400-watt metal halides, but now I use LEDs mixed with T5s. Man, it's so pretty. I mean, the T5s fill in all the little spots that you have that the LEDs can get to, and then the LEDs just give it that good shimmer effect.
Right.
Now,
right.
I totally promote LEDs, and the reason why is because people don't change their bulbs, nor do they want to. And with an LED, I can rock that thing for 5-6 years and not have to worry about changing the bulbs out. Maybe I have to change out a driver that I can buy for $5, or the company gives me free that's plug and play. But other than that, I don't have to worry about that. And that, when I started getting into the hobby, that was like the one thing that I was thinking about, because how is that fair to my animal if I'm going to sit there and run the bulb for 2 years and then finally switch over to something? And you might look at it and go, oh, it's just a thing in some water, but it's still an animal, and it still has needs that it needs to be healthy. And I wouldn't want my ribs showing on my dog, and the same thing, I wouldn't want discolored or thin tissue on my corals. So I look at LEDs as a long-term solution. I know plasma's coming out, and they're just not all cracked up to what they're supposed to be, and the spectrum's just not there for me. And that's the reason I feel combination lighting is important. Mixing T5s with LEDs, or LEDs with halides, or halides with T5s or T12s, or whatever. It all works. It's right. It's just whatever's easier.
Right. We do the same in our shop. We do a lot of mixing, like the big reef tanks got T5s and LEDs on it. But I mean, I'm comfortable going with new stuff and trying new stuff, and if it doesn't work, but I'm kind of disappointed that the mainstream aquarium stuff isn't better suited to what it should be doing. It's really disappointing. I mean, you should be able to just buy a light, put it on your tank, and expect it to work for the function it's designed for. And they tell you it is, but it doesn't. It doesn't grow plants, it doesn't grow coral. And I find this throughout the hobby. There's a lot of equipment that the claims that are made for it don't stack up. So it's nice. You do reviews on a lot of stuff, I assume, right? And make product recommendations.
I'm so far behind. Yes, I do that a lot. I never did it to think, I'm going to make money or anything like that. I got into the hobby, or I got into fish rooms from YouTube, and I watched YouTube, and I learned from YouTube, because I'm very started reviewing products, and then, finally manufacturers come to you. They want you to try your product out. And I'll be honest, guys, I've probably tried out about 30 products that haven't made it to the video because I said, sorry, I can't do video on this because it's just not working. You have great customer service, but your product doesn't work, and I can't condone it or I can't promote it. I'm not going to start my name on it. I'm not one of those people, but it's good to see products work and also help other people, because I don't take these all in as gifts and things. The things that I do receive just for having YouTube is a lot of these things you see on other people's tanks. I give to them and I shoot the footage of their tank just for the fact of material and trying to educate the hobby. I'm not saying my way's right, and I'm saying your way's right, but I just found what works for me, and I'm showing you guys. So, I hope that helps.
Right. Don, exactly. Do you have a question?
Yeah, change the subject just a little bit. Say somebody is having problems with their lighting and they can't really afford to get something a little bit more expensive. What do you suggest to someone? Obviously, you suggest that they start out with the correct lighting, but when it comes to changing, like when they find out, in fact, that the lighting that they wanted for growing a coral and that is not doing the job, what do you do? What do you do when someone comes to you with that kind of a problem?
I got a video. Sorry, I'm sick. I got a video coming out. It's funny that you mentioned that, but it's where to find this. I'm feeling good. That where to find the cheapest light or the cheapest fix. I had an LED that just went out on my system, and it was an old D120. When the D120s came out, they were $150. Now, that might not be a lot of money to you guys, but at the time of that product, that was a decent amount of money. Now, they have remade this product for about $79 now, and these things are 165 watts, and they can penetrate, a 3-foot tank, no problem. Now, when someone comes to me and they can't afford lighting, those are one of the options that I recommend. Tailtronics makes a light. It's just white and blue. Obviously, you can get the full spectrums, but that's about as cheap and what I would recommend to go to. Now, there's other products out there like the PAR 38s. Now, these are super cool lights. These are lights that just screw into an incandescent light fixture. I believe it's like an E27 socket, and they are LEDs. There's little heat sinks in there that keep the light cool, and these LEDs are looking through optics, whether that's 90 degrees, 30 degrees, or 60 degrees, depending on what it is. And a lot of these are 54 watt full spectrum. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with your basic Chinese boxes, they're right around 120 watts, they're 65 watts, and they do a decent job over a 40-gallon tank. Now, 2 of these PAR 38s, you can get them for about $25 a piece. Some you can get for about $18. I wouldn't really recommend those ones, but the ones that use the 3-watt Bridgelux LEDs, I would highly recommend those LEDs. They're just long-lasting, and they do the job. Now, you can light a 40-gallon tank for $50. Now, how much cheaper can you get? And that bulb obviously is going to last for about 4 or 5 years. So I did a video for jacobsparts.com, and these were 12-watt LEDs, white and blue. And I was so bummed out because I did this video, I posted the video, and then the next week, full spectrum, 58 or 54-watt LEDs came out. And obviously, even if I would have bought 4 of those for the tank, it would have been way too much. It worked out perfect for the bulbs that I had, but I really wanted to recommend those. And I am working with some Hong Kong suppliers on these Taiwan bulbs. I want to get them out to the market because I think they're just great. They allow a lot of people to build tanks in places where you wouldn't be able to build, have a really pretty tank because the light would be huge or massive or something like that. So they really add that beautiful, presence. I call it hypnotic. When I come to my house, after work, I just look at my tank. I just get hypnotized. Those lights really do help.
Cool. Now, do these point straight down, or do they?
Yes.
Are they?
They just be like a standard PAR 38 floodlight that you see at Home Depot. but there might be 10 or 12 LEDs inside it. So they look just like a floodlight, but instead of it being glass, it's heat sinks and LEDs underneath. And they're awesome, man. I mean, I haven't had one break, and I own about 6 of them, and I think I've sold close to about 60 or 70 of them, and no one's called me back. So hopefully that's good news.
Wow, that's a great solution. That's a great inexpensive solution.
Oh, it is spotlighting. That's what I don't tell people. Hey, this is the solution to your tank. If somebody has halides or somebody has T5 and they have some spots that don't look good, buy one of these. For $25, you can go buy a little fixture at Home Depot or Lowe's, put it up in your canteen, point it at a 1x1 or 2x2 area, depending on what the wattage is. If it's a 12 watt, it'll do a 12x12 cube, no problem. Mine's doing it, I think, 16x12. But these 54 watt LEDs, I mean, they can do a 2x2 cube, no problem, or a 2x2 spot in the tank and really give you that cool look. And it's a cool alternative to Kessel. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kessel, but Kessel has LEDs that I believe they're about right around 150 watts. It's just one bulb. So
I know,
for the person who can't afford that, this is a great alternative and allows them to still enjoy the hobby.
I would like to bring up who will be on our show next week if I can. This is our usual break time, but I know that Bob's gone away, and we're just going to run right through the show. But I want to get out who's coming on our show next week on the Reefs and Rivers Aquarium show here on the Wacko Radio Network. We go back to the freshwater aquarium world, and we learn all about aquascaping, and that means with live plants. And we will be joined by Don Boyer, who has written an article, a well-known article that was in Amazonas magazine. And also on that program, we are going to be joined by a couple of angelfish enthusiasts, because as we know, angelfish can be a part of any planted aquarium, can they not, Jim Carmark?
They can be. Well, maybe not any planet aquarium, but certainly a magnificent planet aquarium. Hey, my little neons wouldn't like big angels with them.
No, but angelfish get along with plants. They might not get along with some of the smaller relatives that may be in the aquarium. But we're going to look at plants for Tetra tanks and angelfish aquariums, as we will be having Brenda Carpenter from our angelfish group join us, and another artist. Known as MS Artworks, or Becky, who has been on our program a long time ago that Jim has never met, but he's going to get to meet her on our next program. And I think it's time for Jim to ask Tyler another question. Over to you, Jim.
Tyler, I remember what I asked you before. Food. What would you say is the minimum food we can feed, not a reef tank, but a small fish tank? Most people just want to feed eggs, and I tell them they have to feed a frozen food, but I don't know which one to recommend. And most of these are like the gumdrop cubes and things like that. Do you have one that you like better than the others?
And I'm glad you mentioned this, and yes, I do remember this now. And, a variety is my friend, and that's kind of how I do things. I love to feed my fish a variety of things, but I also watch my fish. And I've noticed that if I just feed, no offense to Omega, I have loved their products since day one, and they still use their products. Can you survive on pellets alone? I say, no, you can't. And the reason why, with the fish that I had, is he would eat my sleeper goby would not touch the pellets, nor was my sand bed big enough to keep him happy. So we played a game. We played a game where he would get full on frozen mysis and Omega flake food, and then I would switch back over to pellet, because obviously it's easier when someone's working. And as point where, and I'm not even joking, I didn't even know what was going on. He'd be a little bit bigger than, I'd say a Tic Tac width-wise, where his rib cage was. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I switched back over to Flake, and he would reach and help. So with that question, I say everything in variety. I mean, you can't just survive on pellet. Maybe you can with some of the fish, but there is some fish that can't survive with everything. As far as frozen and things like that, it also depends on your system, and what you believe in. There's so much food on the product, and there's so many people throwing so much food in there. I just watch my fish. If they finish their food within 3 minutes, just like it says on the label, I feed them more. Of course, if I come back 20 minutes later, they're going to eat the same amount of food, and then obviously, I'm going to cause an infection in their digestive system or whatnot. But what I want you to think about, and the listeners think about, is your digestive system. The human digestive system, I believe, don't quote me on this, I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head, but it's, I think it's like 85% of our immune system is in our digestive system. That's how important your digestive system is to your overall health. And a lot of these foods that are coming out of the market have probiotics. And these probiotics are actually adding these bacteria into these fish's digestive systems. And we're seeing an increased lifespan, seeing increased coloration, overall health. This is great. This is exactly what I've been wanting to hear. Like I say, we are one blessed generation. We are at the infancy of this hobby and what these creatures need. And I feel it's so important to get these things done before it's too late. I don't want to sit here and talk about radiation. Willy, you did a show with Jasmine from the Sea Musketeers about pollution and plastics. I'm going to be interviewing her soon on my YouTube channel on Google Hangouts, and we're going to talk about the pollution in the ocean and things like that. But I think it's important that we get these things, these specimens, up to health before it's too late, guys, because I think it's going to be our job to replenish the ocean like it is we do with our forests here on land.
Wow. All right. I don't know. Let's go to live rock for a second. You recommend starting? I absolutely agree. I mean, we so much. I mean, as Will knows, Will obviously knows, I'm involved with Project Diablo, which is sustainable harvest of the rainforest without cutting it down. Essentially, and it's the Project Diablo itself is the harvest of cardinal tetras, and I'd like to see programs, especially educational programs, to try to teach people a little bit of balance required for a ecology to run. Even if that ecology is only a 20-gallon tank, it's obviously it's part of a larger system around it. But what happens in that small microcosm is indicative of what could happen around us. Too much pollution, too much crowding, too much this, and bad things happen. You keep things clean and you keep the detritus where it belongs and you grow the right things, everything goes back in balance. And reef tanks can be very much a balancing act, between the corals and the corals growing fast enough to sustain themselves and look good and hopefully get big enough to be reproduced, and not let them get so big that they outgrow the tank or start infringing upon other corals. You asked me what corals that we recommend and sell. We sell colts and leathers. We sell green star polyps. We sell xenia. And we sell a couple of zoanthids. And I know the zoanthids, I'm scared of the zoanthids from the polytoxin that's in them. But they just scare the heck out of me. Yeah. I handle those when I got to drag them or cut them or anything, I wear rubber gloves because that's some nasty stuff coming out of them. But the rest of the stuff other recommendations would you make? I mean, I don't do Gonopora anymore, or Montipora. They just don't seem to last, really, except the dedicated aquarists. Candy canes seem to do okay, but again, I think they require a bit more dedication. We have a lot of people that just want a few fish, a few corals, keep it simple. And, you know, no matter how hard I try, I can't seem to boost them to the next notch, you know, where they actually, some of them do. Some of them move up to the next notch, but a lot of them don't. You know, a lot of them, the fish are lucky to get fed 5 times a week.
Yeah.
So, getting to live rock, we've been buying dried out live rock, and it costs about $4 a pound, and we sell it for $7.50 a pound. We've also been buying dead rock and making it alive and selling that for $5 a pound. And we like that because we don't get bristle worms. There's a lot of stuff we don't get. But it takes a while for rock to become alive. It takes 6 months, 7 months, and we don't have that much space. Are there any good alternatives that you know of? Good rock alternatives?
Yeah, man. Let me touch on that. Don't let me forget that question. The last mariculture, we'll talk about that. But I did a really cool thing with a guy. This is what really got me into the hobby. And I have personally owned a 3/4 gallon Pico tank, and I had one for over a year. And I know of one that's almost 12 years old. Now these things are awesome, and this is a marine biologist who I'm not gonna say he came up with this idea, but he did document it, and I believe he's one of the only ones that has documented it live and on the web and for someone to actually see. But he came up with an idea of building these 1 gallon Pico tanks that we can all have in our home, and we can all give to get back to the ocean that we needed to. Now I have an upcoming show with John Norris, a marine biologist, and he is going to be able to make my dream a possibility. And I've been talking about this for the last year and a half, and that's trying to find a place in the ocean where us hobbyists can replenish. It'll be our own spot where us aquarium owners or us aquaculturists or us fish breeders, because you can even do fish, can donate to an organization like MOAT, or the one that you were talking about, and they will implement these certain species onto these reefs across the world. And I just thought this would be awesome if there was an easy way to do that. And this 1 gallon tank is pretty awesome, and it grows coral just as fast as a tank that is on certain dosers or the most coolest equipment that you can ever think of. But it simply runs off of calcium A and alkalinity B, and just a couple capfuls every week, and 100% water change, which only takes about 3 seconds because it's only a gallon. But I've done some videos on it, and you'll see me stuck in the water house. Like I have a little coral banded shrimp in there, and I have to plug up the hose. But I've done a lot of videos on them, and they're super simple, and it's a great way to get hobbyists into the hobby, and they're not doing a lot of damage. Because you can easily go to a pet store, grab a piece of live rock that'll fit inside these bases or these 12 by 12 cubes, and take things slow. You listen to Brandon, I can't remember his last name, but he says, do not let the tank cycle. So that's the trick. We feed the tank, we wait 15 minutes or 2 hours. We already have our fresh gallon of salt water, our 1 gallon of salt water in our hand. It's already at the temperature. We know it's good. Our inhabitants have eaten everything in the tank. I go in there with the Fricky Baster, I blow everything around, and then I suck all the water out. Within 3 seconds, all of the water is gone, and I am pouring in a fresh gallon of salt water. Technically, I can walk away. I'm done. I don't need to test for anything. I don't have to worry about a cycle down the road. I don't have to do anything. As long as I don't have any fish in there, I'm fine, and I'm good. And technically, you can do this once a month, once a week, or every other week. or, you know, you can stretch it out, but like I said, that's unfair to the inhabitant if it starts to become weak and thin and you know, not as the true, whatever you say, how it should be, you know. So I want you guys to check that out. Look on YouTube, just type in Reef Base or Brandon 429 or 420, I can't remember which one it is. But they're super cool little bases. They help kids get into the hobby, and you don't do a lot of damage to the hobby to sustain it. Now, your question about rock. I have found a good alternative for that. West Mariculture. And I don't know if you guys have heard of him on Facebook. Check him out, westmariculture.com. I have not his products on my website because I am so slammed with phone calls and other products that I have to finish before I can get to him. But he does sell reef-ready rock, and it's already painted all the way through. So he has purple, he has white, and he has black. And you can pretty much make whatever design you want, but he also has the standard products. And when he does it, he sells the bacteria that comes with the rock. So when you get the rock, you're able to put it in your tank, add the bottle of bacteria like you're supposed to. Probably operates closely the same way as stability, and then you're off to go. And he does rock. He does all types of rocks and substrates, and what else does he do? Aquascapes, like complete aquascapes, like a whole insert or so into the tank. So check that out.
Really?
That's something I would recommend. And he's just getting to the point into his company where he's ready to branch out, and me and him were able to hook up, and hopefully I'll be able to promote his products really well. But he does a very well job of doing that locally, and he wants to do it even better online. So we'll start to see more of his stuff. And West,
what was his first name again?
His name is Paul West. He's on Facebook. And usually if you look at Paul West, his thumbnail is like a picture of peak live rock. But the business name is West Mariculture. And his website is freaking awesome. I'll just say it like it is, because you can do whatever you want on there. You just call him up, and he does free quotes, and you just pay when you're done. And delivery is super cheap as well.
That's a guy I need to talk to. Cool. Thank you.
Excellent. Tyler, you can give me the information, and I'll make sure that Jim Carmark gets that information. Now, we have a certain surprise people coming up this month due to the Thanksgiving holiday. Bob and I have talked, and we're going to do a special show with John Brandyberry on a Tuesday. And we're going to be talking about the fish of the Sea of Galilee and its impact on our world today. Are we not, John?
Yes, we are.
And we're going to be joined by Hannah Pro Discus or Hannah Pro Aquariums, and I do believe that it is the Tuesday of Thanksgiving that we're going to be booking with Bob to do this show, and we're going to do one at around Christmas time and find out what that show is all about here on the Wacko Radio Network. and now we're going to ask Jim for his final question. I've got to get the final question out, and then we got to do some station business. And I want to thank Tyler for being on the show today. Thanks a lot, buddy. I appreciate you coming on and talking about this particular subject. Over to you, Jim Carmark.
Wow, I get the last question. Let me think.
Yeah, you get the last question.
What would you recommend? What would you recommend for starter fish? Every kid that comes in wants Nemo, and I've been pretty successful getting kids to set up a tank and keeping a couple clownfish alive. Would I be better off selling them something different or trying to talk them into something different? Or do you think these tank-raised clowns are a good, viable alternative and a good beginner fish?
I think you're going to get excited because I got an idea. I did a video on this. The cheapest fish to cycle as saltwater tank. Now, I really don't think they do very well in high flow situations, but I'm still experimenting with that. But if you remember back in the 70s, when they were introduced into the hobby, they were introduced in the saltwater industry, and then they got switched over to freshwater. Mollies. Mollies are super cheap. They're super easy to switch over to saltwater, and they do quite well at eating algae in a tank. Believe it or not, if you have film algae on the front of your tank and you have a school of these in there, you'll see lip marks. Every square inch of that tank will be covered with these little lip marks. So then also, when they breed, I used to breed these in my refugiums, and then I would catch the babies and feed my reef with them. I mean, they're just awesome. And not to mention, when they're in salt water, they're even prettier. So, I mean, that's a good idea. I know, some places mollies are expensive, but where we live, it's kind of the other way around. Mollies are kind of cheap, and these clownfish they start at like $25. And I remember when I got into the hobby, they were about $12.
Yeah, we get $10 now. So
you sell them for $10? Yeah.
Yep.
I live in the desert, man.
There's a local guy down the street that breeds them that we buy them from. So we're selling a locally bred clownfish. The quality's okay. It's the orange is not maybe as deep orange as it could be. The white maybe is not as bright white as it could be, but it's a decent fish, and it's rock solid. So, I mean, in the past, when I first started doing this back in the 50s, keeping a wild clownfish alive was a job, and they were fussy. They didn't like to eat. They carried a lot of baggage with them. They always came in with ruthenium and all kinds of stuff. But these tank raised clowns that are available from ORE or, from there's a lot of local breeders around here. I can think of 5 guys raising saltwater fish, as well as 10
and that's good. Yeah, I've been doing a lot. I've been doing a lot of shows with people that breed marine species. Coral Magazine's got a good article where you can actually see the species that have been bred and the species that we're trying to breed. But it's amazing. And a lot of these people, they're just like, wow. It's, like I said, it's part of the hobby. They're just like, I want to breed the red striped flame, or the red striped flamefish. And just like that, you go and try and do something like that hasn't been done, and next thing you know, you've succeeded. And that's all it is. It's someone just needs to do it, and when we figure out how to do it, I know we're not trying to play God or anything, but we are making a stronger species when we are introducing them to parameters that go up and down, up and down, up and down. And the same thing with our corals. We are building a stronger species that goes up and down, that can survive out in the wild, where acidification is taking place, where the pH is going up and causes bleaching. You can insert these aquaculture corals, and they'll survive. And same thing with the fish. So I think it's awesome that people are starting to breed fish, and I hope to see more people do it. It's something that I haven't done that's part of the hobby, but I did do the cichlid breeding, and I loved it. And I bred thousands of fish, and I sold those, and I had a blast doing that. And I just had to get my hands on the coral. It's just out of this world.
Well, I had a community project going down in Belize, down in Monkey River, where we actually made rock out of sand, broken up conch shells, and coconut fronds. And we would build structures. We would build structures, bring them out onto the reef. The coconut fronds would rot out, leave all these little crevices and caverns through the rock. And we dump it on the reef, and we bring back existing rock from the reef in order to pay for it's a pretty long trip. It was like 18 miles each way.
Yep.
And we couldn't get a permit to ship the rock out of the country.
So never even
No, the whole project collapsed because we got permits. we get permits to ship out everything. We could ship out fish. We could ship out coral. But because of the wording of something, it was a natural product of Belize, I needed permission from Congress in order to ship it out. And because of the economics, you're just so far from the airport, you need a certain minimum, so you can't, unless you're piggybacking the fish onto a base load, you can't justify the costs. And this is a problem I've encountered a lot of places, is transportation costs can be so high that unless you have a lot of something in order to piggyback the rarer stuff onto, you can't justify shipping the rarer stuff out. We see
well,
this.
Guess what?
Huh?
I said, well, guess what? I have something that I didn't announce to you guys in the beginning, but we also have another website that I just purchased, and we are just getting off the ground. A lot of people that we're talking about with it, but it's called Live Addiction Aquaria. What this website is going to do is it's going to centralize everybody who sells retail online, and obviously everybody's shipping rates are different. Now I haven't told anybody about this, only business people. So this is the first time that I've actually announced it on air or publicly. But basically the way this system works is everybody ships under addictive aquaculture. So if Larry at Larry's Reef or Joe at Joe's Reef or Mike at Mike's Reef, they all put their coral up for sale on my site, or they put their fish up for sale on my site, or whatever their inhabitant is, and they all have the same shipping because everybody ships under addictive aquaculture. So their percentage is as cheap as it gets. Now, I'm not going to tell you guys the rate because that's a surprise, but it's basically going to knock shipping off of these rare items that you're talking about out of the question. And it's only going to bring price to the table. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow a customer to come to a website and know that he's buying from trusted vendors or trusted suppliers, and he knows that shipping is going to be the same with every single person in there. So I'm super excited to launch that. We are launching with A to Z Corals from Coral Media Aquatic Expo. He's our first guy. We also have CMG from Exotic Breeders, Michael Thatcher with cichlids from the freshwater industry side, and I can't mention the 10 other people, but so if you're interested in selling on the site, come over. We'll get you introduced and put you up on our to-do list. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Send me an email.
Yeah,
because we're definitely
just give me your info.
Yep.
Anyhow, I have some station business to look after. I'm at that point in the show where I have to look after station business. So
Okay,
I want to
Willy.
thank you, Tyler, for being on the show, and we'll make sure that contact is made between you and Jim in regards to the website and everything else. And just send me that information through my messages, and I'll make sure that Jim gets it. And Bob, I know that we have got 2 shows coming on tomorrow. John, are you looking forward to doing the show on pit bulls? I know that I am. How about you?
Oh, yeah. I sure am.
And tomorrow we also have got an entertainment review radio show featuring the new music out of Canada. And tomorrow we're going to begin a series of new music in November from artists from Canada, and where we got the name from for that show. So I'm really, really looking forward to tomorrow's show. And over to you, Bob. What's coming up on the network now?
Well, you brought up Thanksgiving and what you're doing. I'm going to be doing my final show of the year of Wacko in the Morning on Thanksgiving. And I'm looking to do a lot of things with that show for 3 hours. One of them is that's already been booked and guaranteed to be on the show is Regan LaFay. She'll be coming back to the network. And aside from Regan LaFay, we're going to say we're looking to do a lot more with that one too. I'm actually going to be making a call to another good friend of mine named Hannah Ford. See if we can get her on the show as well too for Thanksgiving Day. So it's definitely going to be something with what we're going to be doing with music, with not just music, but with Thanksgiving altogether. And normally it's one of my biggest shows of the year when I do the final on Thanksgiving Day like that. And like I said, we hope to do a lot more. Aside from that, later on tonight, we'll actually be replaying the Halloween show that was done by Chuck Stone Thursday. So for all you Halloween fans, you may want to check this one out. So
excellent. So keep on tuning in to the Wacko Radio Network. And Tyler, let's get out your information once again for the audience. And then Jim Carmark, you can get out your information, and then we'll wrap it up. Tyler?
Yeah, well, thanks again, guys. Once again, I had a blast being on the show. And like I said at the beginning, all the links that I have talked about have been posted here on Blog Talk. And if you are on Facebook, you'll see those comments as well. Come friend me on Facebook. Come subscribe to me on YouTube. And if you missed anything else, send me a message, and I'll see if I can answer it for you. Thanks again, guys.
You're welcome. Hang on until the music. Jim Carmark, can you get out your information?
Well, Reefs and Rivers is 739 State Road, Plymouth, Mass. You can reach me at Jim Carmark at yahoo.com, all small letters. Drop me a line if you got any questions or comments, or if you're looking for some quality fish.
And next week we will have Don Boyer from the Hydra Forum. He will be on. He did a wonderful article in Amazonas Magazine. We're going to be talking about aquascaping aquariums with tetras, and we're going to be inviting MS Artworks and Brenda Carpenter onto the show next week, because the angelfish do like planted aquariums, and especially bigger aquariums. And we're going to learn more about aquascaping, planted aquariums, and those kind of residents in that type of aquarium that you keep in your home, here on the Reefs and Rivers Aquarium Show. And Bob, it's time to play our lead out song. I think it's got something to do with the bullfrogs.
It's got a lot to do with bullfrogs and fishes, and shocks me, but let's get this one out there.